Welcome back to Moat Cottage. It's late autumn and the trees are displaying their beautiful fiery colours. It's nature's last gift of brightness and warmth as the short, cold and grey winter days creep up on us. My winter preparations start the winter before, when I'm looking at my seed packets, seed catalogues as well as the pantry shelves and deciding what I will be needing to grow for the year ahead. Then there is the soil preparations, sowing of the seeds, growing, harvesting and preserving. By the time it gets to the end of autumn, only the very last of the jobs needs to be done before the change of the seasons. I'm regularly bringing cut flowers inside. I have vases of cheerfulness all over the cottage. Having a lot of flowers inside the house at this time of year really helps with the transition of not being able to spend as much time outside and having to spend more time inside. They add a beautiful energy to every space that they're in, and I put them in all sorts of vases. The chickens and musky ducks are getting the turnip tops and some silver beet that I just harvested. It's finally time to harvest the remaining tomato plants as well as the chilli plants. My vegetable garden area is quite protected and we've had temperatures go down to -1 degree Celsius. So it is time to get rid of the plants that no longer can tolerate the frosts. This will make room for new plants to go in for the winter crop. This also means I finally get to harvest the pumpkins. It wasn't a good year for my pumpkins. I lost numerous plants. In fact, I only had one plant survive. This was due to unnoticed irrigation issues. I couldn't tell some weren't getting watered, as it was a jungle of life over the summer. I didn't notice until it started to die back and I could see what was actually going on. I've harvested 3 pumpkins and there is a 4th pumpkin still ripening up, so I'll leave the vine there and if we're lucky we might get that one as well. Thankfully last year was a successful year, so I still actually have a pumpkin that I harvested last year on the shelf, which I will have to use soon because I can't believe it's lasted this long. Hopefully it's okay on the inside. I have pressure canned pumpkin on the shelf from the year before when I had an excellent year as well. I also decided to buy 4 whole pumpkins because they're a good price in the autumn when they've just been harvested, and I would rather have too many than not enough. And for now, my pumpkins are ready to cure in the pantry larder. Most herbs survive my winter, but the last of the frost tender ones get hung. We've also got plenty of wood, and all of the heat sources are well and truly checked by now and have been going for half of the autumn already. Smoke alarms have new batteries and are working. Everyone in the family has enough warm clothes and shoes, although I did realise that I'd be needing new gloves, so I've ordered them and they're on their way. We have plenty of blankets for the family and a few extras for guests. The door snakes are back out to prevent drafts from under the doors, and the heat sacks are ready to heat up on those cold evenings. When the weather starts warming up in the spring, I use electrical tape to tape up the switches for the heat lamps so that no one accidentally turns on a heat light, because you don't want a heat light on when it's in the 40-degree temperature heating up the room. So that tape is now removed so that we can now use the heat lamps when we're having showers. We're always pretty organised with our own supply of water that's off-grid and have plenty of food and medicine and pet supplies, as well as spare batteries and toiletries. So it's not actually something we have to really go out of our way to think about at this time of year. But if you're not as organised or prepared, then maybe that's something you could think about getting. And the vehicles are mildly winterised with good tyres and new windscreen wiper blades, because now that it's raining occasionally we might actually need to use them. This is my very own onion marmalade recipe. I've made a video on this, so if you want to watch it, then I'll leave the link in the description below for you. The very last of this season's chilies have been dehydrated, and I'm turning them into a powder. I keep my chili powder on the spice rack so it's near the stove top, and I can use it anytime I feel the need for a bit of extra spice and flavour in my dishes. At this time of year, I'm also starting to think about tidying up some of the cupboards. I know 2 of my kitchen cupboards look like a cyclone's been through them, so they will need some attention in the near future. Any onion marmalade jars that don't seal can be frozen. It works out quite well and it lasts for up to 12 months in the freezer with no problems. Or you can turn it into a delicious onion tart. I do use ready-made pastry occasionally, but this tart is insanely good with homemade pastry. It's only flour, butter and egg. I rub the butter into the flour and then mix in the egg. Although I live in a cool climate for Australia, as far as the world goes, it's not cold, it's fairly mild winter that we have. So our preparations aren't as extreme as what some of your preparations would need to be. We're not getting 10 foot of snow. We're lucky to get 1 millimetre of snow. It would be so exciting if it snowed here. Occasionally it does, but 1 millimetre would be amazing. It's not really something we have to think about here. Summer is really what we prepare for. We have the extreme dry heat and obviously bushfires. So that is the season that is for our big preparations. But even though we don't have to have major preparations for winter here, it's still good to be prepared and make sure the roof is sealed and all the doors and windows work properly and seal properly, and that you do have all the things you're going to need for a cold winter. If you don't have electricity or heating for some reason, you have to have your backup plans, like a generator and plenty of blankets and warm clothes. An insulation around your water service so that it doesn't freeze, because we still get -6 degrees and that is cold. This is a fragile pastry, so it's nearly impossible to get it in the dish without breaking. However, it can be easily moulded into place in the greased cooking dish. Once your pastry's in, then pop it in the fridge for an hour before adding the onion marmalade. Don't worry about blind baking the tart casing though, it all cooks well with the marmalade inside. If you normally heat your hot water up with electricity, then it's a good idea to have a backup heat source for warming water, like a barbecue or a gas stovetop. In that case, you also need a kettle with a whistle so that you can heat up the water, because if you don't have electricity, it's always nice to be able to have a cup of coffee, at the very least. Thanks for spending your time at Moat Cottage and for sharing my videos on other social platforms. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.